The world of assisted living, memory care, independent senior living, and in home support can feel overwhelming for aging individuals and their families. Every situation is unique, and often there's resistance and a quiet fear of what aging might take away. In moments like these, you don't just need options, you need a guide, someone who can handhold you through the process, truly understand your needs, and offer clarity with compassion. Today, we're speaking with that someone, Sandi. She helps families make informed decisions, confident decisions about senior care, removing stress from a process that often feels heavy and uncertain. Sandi, welcome to Full Circle. What brought you into elder care? What has been your motivation?
I was in a company for 30 years and thought I would spend the rest of my life there, but then they were sold and reorganized, and so I needed to find something different. So someone brought Care Patrol as an opportunity to me to buy a franchise. And as I learned more and more about it, I thought this is really something that I want to do because it's a way that you can help people, but you can still make a living, and what a wonderful combination that was.
I realized that you're probably one of the most, emotionally involved into the job. How it is to be part of some of these families, support them. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I guess going back a step, what we do at Care Patrol is we help families find assisted living, independent living, memory care, in-home care. We're an advisor to the families, and a lot of times they come to us and they're in a crisis situation. Maybe mom has fallen and she broke her hip, and they can't take her back home because her bathroom is on the second level and she can't get upstairs. So we're dealing with people a lot of times that are in a crisis situation. And a lot of times what we find is that when we just talk to the family and just go through the process of finding out about their mom or their dad and what their needs are and what their financial situation is, they're just so relieved to have somebody there, because nobody plans for this. Some people do, but most people don't plan for this. They're going to stay in their home and that's where they're going to die. Well, sometimes it doesn't work that way. And so we're taking these families kind of by the hand and leading them through this process. And a lot of times it can be very rewarding just to be that person that steps in and you're the hero. Then there are other times where it can be so difficult, where maybe the dementia is so bad that they don't have a lot of options, or maybe the finances are not the greatest. We just try to get people into the right place. So it is difficult at times, but other times it's just so rewarding, and I feel like part of the family, actually. What happens is when we get a referral, and that may come from a hospital or a doctor's office, or lately we get a lot of people that know people that we've helped, and they call us, and so we go in and we help. Well, we go through with the family and find out what the situation is. And we might be there with the senior as well. But we find out what their likes are and dislikes are, what their care needs are. We want to find out what makes them happy socially. But then we also look at the finances, as I said. And then based on what we're looking at, what we see, we're able to make recommendations. And so once we make those recommendations, usually it's for a community. Sometimes it's for in-home care. But if it's for a community, then we'll take the family and or the senior on tours, and we're with them the whole time, making sure their questions get answered, showing them why we think this might be a good option for them. But then they make the ultimate decision. We just give them options that will work for them.
And one of the other things that kind of stuck with me that you mentioned earlier was that the revenue model is around what the facility kind of pays you. So there'll be a lot of times when you're helping somebody, but there is probably no revenue coming in as well.
Our goal is to help people. I mean, that is, we hire people based on their hearts, not necessarily their skill set. And so a lot of what we do, probably 2/3 two-thirds to three-quarters of what we do for free, pro bono. At times, we're referring people to different resources that may be able to help them better than we can. Other times, we're placing in communities that we don't have agreements with. We are always doing what we can for the client. It's not about the money. You do the right thing for the client and the money follows. And so to me, you have to be able to sleep at night. And by doing business in that way, we sleep at night. The one thing that I find so satisfying is, like I said, when you're talking to a family and at the end of the meeting, they're like, I'm just so relieved we have someone that can help us with this. I was so scared and now I'm not scared anymore. And I have this one family, unfortunately, that I've worked with them multiple times because the mom had a stroke, and so the parents needed to go together to a place, and then she got worse and we had to move them to a different place, and then she ultimately passed away, and then the husband got dementia, and so we had to find him a place. We've worked together so many times, and they're just so grateful, which is a nice thing. But I just feel so bad for them because it can be an ever-changing situation with the elderly, and you never know what's going to happen next. I've got another situation right now. I have an aunt. Her husband is in rehab. He gets out today, and I talked to her yesterday. It's like, what do you think about getting some help in the home? I know she's totally stressed, and she's the type that has to take on everything herself, and she's very stressed, and it's like, can't we get somebody? And it's like, no, he's going to say no because he's stubborn and doesn't want help, and the help he gets, he wants from his wife. So, yeah, it's frustrating.
Sandi, in these kind of situations, do you actually end up spending time with the patient as well?
It depends. We take the lead from our families. So sometimes I've been in situations where it's like, let me talk to them. There was one time I remember they're like, he's so stubborn. And I said, let me try. And obviously we tried talking about how this is such a burden on his family, and his wife can't really help. And, he did agree ultimately to go someplace, but it took a lot of talking. If there's dementia, we don't do a lot of talking because it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, with dementia, you sort of have to make those decisions, and the family has to make those decisions for them.
Sandi, at an ecosystem level, for the entire elder care, long-term care ecosystem, where do you see is the biggest challenge?
Yeah, in the 11 years that I've been doing this, I've noticed that there aren't enough caregivers, and it is very difficult for the communities to hire caregivers. And the other really hard part about this is the financial part. People, they work, they plan for their retirement. Then, like I said, they were going to stay in their home and die there. They missed that part between retirement and passing away. So they don't necessarily save for that. And unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to get care.
And again, Sandi, this has been a recurring theme in various conversations I've had, right? So there's a lack of planning. I think we're all optimistic. The other recurring theme is exactly what you spoke about, right? So the shortage is the wages for care workers.
The wages are not that great. Obviously, certain people pay more than others. And that's the other problem too, is that somebody may jump from one company to another just for an extra 50 cents an hour. So the hard part is, if it's just a job for someone, it's a really hard job. Caregiving is not easy. And especially if you're providing personal care, but when you find somebody that has the heart, that has that caring sense for the seniors, and they do it because they love it, and it's not just a job.
While we spoke about what breaks your heart, what the challenges are, what gives you hope?
I'm really hoping that somebody figures out something, because I'm getting to that age where I need to be thinking about this. I know some different initiatives that are out there with people trying to think of what is next for assisted living, and what we have here in Western Michigan too, there's small group homes, and So the idea is to try to come up with something different. Maybe you have a cluster of homes with a caregiver where people can live relatively independently and then have, get help as they need it. People are coming up with new technology.
From a technology perspective, what are you seeing that's actually helping, that's working?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really cool is that they have a adult brief that can tell if someone has utilized the brief and send a message to the phone. What a great thing that somebody can take care of that right away instead of having to wait. People use cameras. The hard part about that is some of the communities don't want cameras in people's rooms, which I find that a little bit discouraging. In a way I get it, but in a way I don't get it either, because you want to make sure your loved one is safe. And people use them at home as well. I have a 95-year-old dad who lives independently. He's got one of those wonderful personal emergency buttons that he can push if he gets in trouble. And yeah, it's very helpful to be able to have a way to know that there's trouble without being right there.
You don't need to have somebody 24/7. You could actually, like in a care home, you could have one person kind of go around, do whatever is needed. We spoke about how the initial engagement with the family sort of begins. There's either a referral from a hospital, somebody who's worked with you kind of says that, hey, let's go to Care Patrol, they'll be able to help you, sort of a thing. How does your continuous engagement sort of work after that?
We absolutely check in with our families. If they make a decision, we check in with them and make sure that whatever decision they've made is working. We do keep in touch, and if they move into a place, we're checking in with them, seeing how everything is going. And every once in a while there are some issues, and so we help get those resolved with the communities. But we're following up on a regular basis, just making sure that things are going well, that it still makes sense.
How do you maintain your mental balance in all of this?
It helps to have colleagues where you can talk. And even when I first started and I was the only one doing this in my part of the world, I still had other Care Patrol offices throughout the country that I could talk to. Now we have full staff, and so a lot of times we've got a group chat, and it's like, because people that have done this get it. But then I think the other thing too is you have to keep balance by having your own life. I started exercising a couple years ago and make that part of my routine. And I take regular vacations, and sometimes you just have to turn off from it as well.
Tell me a little bit about your team.
We have a total of 10 people on our team now. We've got 5 care transition managers, and they're the ones that work directly with the families and help with the placement and, leading them through the process.
The 5 care transition managers, how many families would they be working with at a time?
The way we have it figured is the most they can work with is about 30 people in a given month. But a lot of those folks, it's a quick phone call. We find out what their situation is, and it's like, okay, maybe we're not appropriate, but let me get you over to this organization. They can help you. So it's really hard to say. At times it feels like they're working with hundreds at a time, but they're not actually. That's about the most that we want them to handle, because after that they can't be effective. It takes time, and we want them to take time to do the right thing. We, of course, have our database, and there's a list of things that we want to find out, but it is more of a fluid conversation. It's not like, okay, does your mom have this? Does your mom have that? It's more of, what can she do? What can't she do? What kind of help does she need? Some people, they need 2 people to help them get out of a chair. Other people don't need help with that, but maybe they need medication management. So we just need to find out what, how they can be helped the most.
If there was a message that you wanted to leave with the audience, considering your line of work and what you have seen families deal with, what would that be?
I have a 95-year-old dad, and he does not have dementia. If someone has dementia, this is a different conversation, but I let him make his own decisions and do the best that I can to support him. And I think families need to listen to their loved ones. Again, if they don't have dementia, and find out what's important to them.